wonderful to be here today talking about an important topic, giving and receiving constructive feedback. So what we're going to focus on today is really understanding why it's important, how do you do it, and also have some take action for you to commit to doing it regularly. What is feedback? And it's really about the transmission of information about an action, an event, or a process to someone else. First of all, before you even begin to give the feedback, you need to prepare. You need to prepare yourself. And there's 5 things that you need to do. The first thing is just check in with yourself. What I mean by that is, why are you giving this feedback? The second thing is the data. Really get clear on the facts and help the person understand the facts and not your perception of them. You need to be clear with yourself in terms of owning it. We all have perceptions and judgments of each other. And so what I mean by owning it is, what is your interpretation of the fact? The fourth one is explore. And what I mean by that is, what do you want to explore? It's a non-judgmental tone of voice. It's a curiosity and a willingness to hear from them. And that is so important, that it is about hearing from them. The last step to preparing to give feedback is this action piece. Because just having the conversation without action doesn't actually change behavior. There are 6 steps to actually giving feedback. First, we want to prepare ourselves mentally and emotionally. Then when we're actually with the person, the first thing we want to do is state the facts, then state the impact, and then finally ask for the person's perspective. And the fourth thing to do is, again, that kind of action piece, explain and understand what the changes are and get that agreement. Here's what I think needs to happen. What do you think needs to happen? The 5th one that you see right here, state the consequences if the behavior continues. I don't always do that one. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And it's really a judgment call in terms of the person and in terms of the organizational philosophy. Step 6, I always do. And step 6 is saying thank you, letting them know, hey, I know this was a really tough conversation. I know feedback can be sometimes a little anxiety provoking, and I'm so glad that we were able to have this conversation, and thank you so much. How do you ask for feedback? Sometimes organizations are not a feedback culture. Maybe sometimes organizations don't really think about giving that feedback, and yet feedback is so important for growth. Ask for it often. Right? There is no reason you have to wait for quarterly meetings or even a one-on-one. Ask for it in real time. Now, real time does not mean in the middle of a client meeting. Let's be really clear. But real time does mean after the meeting or the same day or maybe even the next day. Beyond that, people start to get a little fuzzy. Doing it in person, we can do that many different ways. We can do it by video. We can do it on the phone call. We can do it in person if you are working back in the office. However, it doesn't have to be in person. Sometimes I do my best thinking by writing it out first, but it is important that it is verbal in some way, because that's where you get the nuance. You lose the nuance in a text and an email, and so try as much as you can to do it in person and get that verbal nuance as well. And you can ask lots of people. It doesn't have to just be your supervisor or your peer. You can ask lots of people. Who was at that meeting? Who saw the document you created? Who was with you when you met the client? And ask how they saw the meeting, because everybody's going to see it differently. When we think about receiving feedback, it is just as important as it is to giving feedback. You want to make sure that you are mentally prepared, that is a good time, and if it's not, to say so. You also want to check your body language and your tone of voice. It is natural when people hear the word feedback to start getting nervous, to start getting defensive. Their shoulders start to go up. Maybe they kind of cross their arms. And so what you want to do is really be mindful, if you are receiving the feedback, to have a neutral body language. The third thing you want to do here is to stay curious. And just like we said before, for the person giving the feedback, be open to it and explore. The last step of receiving feedback is making sure that you actually thank the person. Right? They've had to prepare, as you now see. They've had to think about this. They're taking time out of their day to share feedback, and so to thank them, even if you disagree. The important thing is to remember to connect with the person, to be factual, to let them know that you are open to hearing their perspective, and to agreeing on some kind of action.